Hello, and welcome to the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning, your host, and also the president and co-founder of Let Them Live. We bring you interviews with unsung heroes and inspiring individuals who are in the fight to save babies, mothers, and fathers from abortion. Our goal is to amplify their voices and bring their stories to the forefront, shedding light on the incredible work they do and the lives they touch. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform that allows everyone to share their pro-life stories and inspire us to passionately continue advocating for life. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Emily. I am the president and co-founder of Let Them Live and also your host. And I know I say I'm always excited about our next guest, and that's so true. But Jennifer has just become a really good friend of mine, and it's pretty amazing when you can find friends in this movement that understand what you're going through and understand the work and just everything that it takes to serve and be of service to women and their children. So I'm very happy to be talking to Jennifer today. Jennifer Hoffman is the founder of and president of Life Options Network, a whole life support system offered through the church for pregnant and struggling mothers. Jennifer lives near Nashville, Tennessee, with her husband Jeremiah and their 3 daughters. So welcome to the show. How are you?
Happy to be here. So good. So glad we're doing this. Loving it.
Too.
Yeah.
I know. It was like, I can't believe I hadn't thought about it before. It's like such a no-brainer. And it was awesome too, because my assistant Kaylee was like, oh, hey, can you send me some questions? And I was like, yeah, I'll send a couple of talk points, but I feel like for Jenny and I, it's just going to be like a very conversational type thing. Maybe just share a little bit about yourself. Let's talk about Life Options Network. The first time Nathan and I met you guys was out in Washington when you guys were living in Washington State. And we saw the amazing storefront that you have that's available to women. So would love for you to talk about that and just how you got started and just all the good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I actually grew up around the political realm, those types of things, and Right to Life, those types of political organizations. And I love what they do, but I wanted to see a model that answered the long-term support, which is really what you guys do as well, is that long-term care for that mom and helping her think about the future. And this happened about 2017. My husband and I, we had come out of our own just challenges and was watching the Women's March, actually, the one where they were doing the fake abortions in the street. And I had at that point walked with a lot of women in the church, actually, who had gotten pregnant in a non-married situation, things that really women may get shamed for potentially in a church setting, depending on that church. And just saw how difficult it was after the baby was born. And I saw the need for a system of support through the church, because I always look at the stories like you look at the adulterous woman, or you can look at how Jesus treated the woman at the well. He was always trying to lead women back to his love and his care for them. And this was such an important thing for me to bring up, because this is our heart, is to address the why behind abortion, much like what you guys do, which is a lack of provision. One of the crazy things that I learned along the journey was how about 4 in 10 women in the church are actively aborting their children. And when I was talking to pastors, and as I talk to pastors, they're shocked by that statistic. But a lot of it comes down to pastors are scared to talk about this. It's especially on like the West Coast, where I'm from, in the Vancouver, Washington area. It's just known as a political topic. And there are people on the West Coast who, claim a faith in Christianity, and they don't really understand how bad abortion is. They also don't understand that people were killing their babies in the Bible too, and that God condemned that. And so we have some barriers, I think, on the West and the East Coast especially, but we really believe as an organization that as we come around women and we love them, just like what you guys do in the local church setting, that really we're going to begin to remove an argument that states that I can't keep this baby because I don't have what I need. I don't have the things I need, the support I need. And the stat, 75% of women getting abortions because of a lack of provision. But when you have a majority of people, and you can look at CareNet statistics to see this, that don't believe the church is a safe place for the conversation of pregnancy in a tough circumstance. That's a scary thought, that a majority of women walking in, if they were to get pregnant, they wouldn't feel comfortable in the church talking about that. And so that's really what we've been working to do. And so we actually recently took one of our main retail space, and we actually are putting that model into churches. And it's really drawing in thousands of people. And we don't just take in pregnant women. And I think that's something that is a little bit different in how we approach things. Our goal is to remove the mindset that provision won't be there after the baby is born, because that's really the lie that I think we're all up against here.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing. And I'm so excited to talk more about the church, because that's absolutely something that we talked on the phone for over an hour the other day, just about that and about just the struggles that we're facing. But when you started Life Options Network, what were some of the things that you've learned along the way? What are some of the major things that, if you can think of any? Because whenever someone puts me on the spot like this, I'm like, oh, there's been so many, I can't think of it. But any challenges or that you guys have faced that have really led you to learn and be better?
Yeah, I really believe that for us, it's just being willing to maneuver. I think when you start something, and I know you guys have had to have run into this too, Emily, is when you start something, you have this idea in your head of how it's going to look. In fact, when I first started, I was actually looking at childcare, because I knew that was a big struggle for moms, and how could the church bring childcare forward? And then I was looking at housing, and I had this whole journey of discovery of what would really work, what is a replicable model that could really work within the churches, that would not, I don't want to say overburden, because I really think this should be a number one topic for the church, but really be replicable, where churches would feel confident going into this. And that really landed us on the free store model. And then we also have our long-term advocacy program. But I will say it took 2 years before I started to feel like we might have something that actually might draw in a lot of women, because the competition is Planned Parenthood. And especially on the West Coast, you've got them in schools, you've got them in every, I feel like, arena of life they've been able to infiltrate. And so that was an argument. And how do we get the church, who is scared to move on this topic, to begin to say, okay, I feel like I can do that confidently, and that it's both loving in Jesus while also talking about the terribleness of abortion. I think that one of the criticisms we get in the pro-life movement is that we're not compassionate enough toward the post-abortive mom, or even just the circumstances as women are in. So yeah, that's really been the challenge, was coming up with something that I felt like, okay, this can be duplicated, which took a lot of years.
It takes time. It takes time, and it's really an uphill battle, and it's a matter of just facing things and learning and rerouting and trying other things. And it's so weird. You had mentioned a lot of people see pro-life people as not compassionate towards post-abortive women. And someone had commented, it's just so weird. Someone had commented on one of my Instagram posts, making a statement towards me, you hate women who've had abortions. And I was like, where in the world did you get that? I have never once said that. I actually share their stories so that other women can be helped. I have so many women. So it's crazy, because I think that we're dispelling these myths or conceptions about us, and Life Options Network is absolutely doing that by saying, a lot of people say, oh, you don't care about the baby after they're born. Well, Life Options Network, let them live. We're here, we're existing. So I think that's amazing.
We're here. Yeah. I agree. One of our greatest advocates for what we do is a post-abortive mom. And she's a pastor now, a crazy, amazing story. But she was pressured to have an abortion. She was, taught through public schools, abortion was no big deal. And there was a day where her boss looked at her and said, you either get an abortion or you lose your job, which was even at the time super illegal. But she is such an advocate for what we do, because her biggest fear was, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to have what I need for that same thing. So I think that people miss that this is a manipulation of women that they're really experiencing. And when people are very pro-choice, I'm saying to the pro-choice people that, hey, you're allowing for manipulation. You're allowing for women to be made to feel like they can't move forward. And that's not pro-woman at all. And abortion, unfortunately, allows for a lot of manipulation. So yeah, to speak to that, I think we're actually the most caring for post-abortive women because we don't want women to end up in that position. So yeah, that's always been a frustrating angle that people see it as. And I'm like, no, you're allowing for industries to take advantage of women. So
literally, like perfectly said. And that's so true. And there's like I said, there's so many misconceptions about us pro-lifers. And what I really wanted to go back to was you talked about 4 out of 10 women in the church, I think you said, have had abortions or have abortions. That is nuts. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
The church is like the one place that there should be so much support. And I've also noticed that there's a lack, like a lot of churches are lacking in being vocal about abortion and being like a support system. Talk a little bit. I don't know if you've had any personal experiences with churches. I'm sure you've had just turning you down or whatever, but like what some challenges have been with churches in general. And like, why do you think that's happening? You touched on it being political, and maybe it's just because there's pastors that think it's just too much of an uncomfortable subject, but like, how do we move past that? Like, how do we reach pastors and churches and say, I'm sorry that you feel this is uncomfortable, but it's a reality and we need to like step up?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when we were first starting and we had just had that long-term advocacy program. So we didn't quite have the free store yet. And I remember going into a church in Portland, Oregon, which is obviously a very left-leaning city, and sat down with I think it was like the head of evangelism. And this was like a 5,000 person church, and they were in downtown Portland. And they were in the middle of this big remodel at their church. And I explained that 4 in 10 women in the church were aborting. I explained that if we bring provision, all of these things. And I got that's nice, we're very busy. And it's almost like there was just almost no second thought that this was just another cute ministry coming to them to need something. And I want to speak to pastors too. If there's a pastor listening, I know you're really busy and I want to acknowledge that. And I don't want pastors to feel like we don't acknowledge that, because being a pastor is really hard. You have all these different ministries. But is 64 million babies gone enough for the church to begin to extravagantly love? I think about how much finance we spend on youth programs and buildings, all wonderful things, conferences, all wonderful things. We need to do them. They're really important. We got to get to the heart of kids. We've got to get people to Jesus. That is the number one goal in life. If you don't know Jesus, find Jesus. But we also have to, I believe, on the secondary base, have a very strong passion for the unborn. And I always have to look at it with pastors. I have to go back to the Bible and looking at it from the spiritual standpoint of Moloch in the Bible, where the women, what's interesting in the Bible is they were actually sacrificing to Moloch, this demonic god they worshiped, because Moloch promised provision. So it's the same spirit operating today. And because I think the lie the enemy has put out to the church is this is a political topic, it's not a spiritual topic, I shouldn't talk about it. There's been a passivity that's been allowed. And Margaret Sanger, she went after the churches. And once that church gate is open and we are no longer the defense for the fatherless, for the orphan, for women, and then you've got the complete deconstruction of family in our nation, which has been systematically done. I remember sitting at Portland State University and then talking even just about sexuality and how it's just no big deal and sleep with whoever. And I raised my hand in class and I said, so there's absolutely nothing special. There's nothing important about the human experience. We're all just aimlessly here. And the professor had no answer for that. But this is the lie that's been pushed into culture. So we have all of these angles of lies that have been shoved out to young people. And then, of course, we've got identity ideologies today that makes it even less of an important issue for young people. And then anything talking about saving yourself for marriage is just completely mocked. And so I think there was also the purity movement, which had some really good points, but there was also maybe some approaches with it that weren't the best. And so that is where we as the church have to lovingly talk about sexuality and why marriage is the best place for sexuality, while also bringing great support, great love, great provision extravagantly to women. And if we don't do that, we're literally opening up a gate to the abortion industry, because they're not going to stop. They are well executed in terms of their organizational ability. They are spending millions of dollars on what they do. I was looking through a slide the other day of all the companies that are supporting the abortion issue. And it was like an entire page of companies, and it was like probably 80 on each slide. And they were just sliding. And there were these major corporations. And so they have all this money. But here's the thing. Jesus and the Holy Spirit through the church can take a tiny little bit of money and impact millions. We don't need the $6 billion the abortion industry has. What we need are willing hands, willing hearts, willing feet to go out and do the work. And the other day when I saw you guys at the other beautiful nonprofit we were supporting, we had talked about, what does it take? What does it take to do this work? It takes everything. And you had actually said that in your speech you gave it. Yeah. What is it? It takes everything. But see, that's the thing. The Bible says, greater man has no love than this, than he who would lay down his life for his friends. And if we as Christians are calling ourselves Christians, but we're not laying our lives down, we're not willing, and it's only me and Emily and a few other side groups that are doing this extensive work, we got a lot of work to do, honestly. And not to put down any other organizations, we need all of you. We need the clinics. We need every single arena of work to get in the way of this industry, because it has taken millions of lives. And I believe, and I think this is something that I really encourage other pro-life leaders in, is we actually can overcome this spirit in America as Christians. We actually can. Why? Because we have the blood of Jesus. That speaks a better word. And there are nations that don't allow abortion. If we're going to have these crazy laws, especially in liberal states, then we need to have a standard that's very high in how we're serving women within those states, so that we can shift the mindsets and bring them to Christ.
100%.
Because that's the freedom. Yeah.
Seriously, so perfectly said. And you talk about collaboration and partnership in the churches and organizations and leaders, all of us coming together. And the reality is we all have to stop and think, pastors and churches, right? At what point are you going to shift your calendar? At what point are you going to make time for this cause? At what point are you going to make room in your budget for the church to support these moms, right? In my opinion, there's no cause more worthy for two reasons. Number one, women literally are bringing life into this world. So that's how we all came to be. We all came from women. The second is that Mary, how did Jesus come into the world? There is nothing more worthy of our service than supporting women who are pregnant. There's a reason why there's signs on buses that say, if there's pregnant women or elderly people, move aside. There's a reason there's parking spaces just for pregnant women. There's a reason that people treat pregnant women like eggs that if they're dropped, they can break. There's a reason our society gives so much love to pregnant women, and it's a worthy cause. And we all have to work together to make that happen. So if you go to a church, if you're a pastor, if you're hearing this and you feel like your church needs to be more involved, you guys can reach out to Let Them Live, to Life Options Network, however you want to do it. We just want to support women and show the world that this movement is cohesive. And that's something that you and I both agree on, Jennifer, is the cohesiveness. There's so many people and organizations in the movement that might feel like they're in competition or might feel like
Right.
there's not enough money to go around all the pro-life organizations, but that is a scarcity mindset. And we have an abundance mindset
Yes.
where God can
Mm-hmm.
literally do anything. And I think you had told me this, or someone had told me this, I don't know, but someone had told me that a life saved is a life saved. That's a win for everybody. It doesn't matter which organization it was through. And I fully support that. So talk a little bit. I remember too, sorry, I'm talking so much, but when we first met, this was something we had really hit on, was the collaboration and partnership. And a lot of people, when they understand that's just core to who Nathan and I are, they're shocked. But that's what I want to be, like the status quo. So talk a little bit about that, like how you see collaboration and partnership kind of being how we move forward and the importance of that.
Yeah. I come out of the business world and I spent 6 years building a real estate company. And interestingly, I see a lot of the same mindsets with the nonprofit world, right? It is that perspective of dog eat dog, because it feels like it's very difficult to get funds. So some people may feel like if I am too promotional of this group, and it gets weird really fast. And I've seen this quite a bit. And it is so important that we are willing to share. On our page for quite a while, we had lots of different organizations and those types of things. And I think it's such an important thing that people understand that we need each other. The reason we had network in our name was because of that desire to collaborate with other organizations. And it didn't always happen the way I had hoped, unfortunately. And it really came down to resource. And I'm thinking in the next years here that it really will become, I believe, more unified. I'm believing for that there will be more faith within the pro-life movement, that we can really share what each other are doing, and that we don't have to live in that fear of lack. We can really come together. Yeah. And even our partnership, Emily, like when we've been able to work with you guys, with some of the women that have needed help. And that was such an honor to be able to do that in different states and stuff. And that really gave us even the ability to grow in terms of what we were capable of doing. Because when you are serving, saying, hey, you catch this ball, I'll catch this one, it just makes it so much easier. And it becomes this collaborative network. I do believe, the in-person relationship with the churches, and that's something I'm very focused on, will even be more extensive of that. Because when you've got millions of people involved through the church, I mean, the enemy's going to have a much harder time being able to get in the way and get in the minds of women. So yeah, it really is important to have that collaboration. So it's been awesome.
You and I know, everyone knows, like, my to-do list is 1,000,000 miles long, and that's just for Let Them Live. So there is no way I would be able to, or Let Them Live would be able to, take care of this and all these different things. And so it's amazing. And it's such a relief to have other people doing work in the same area, but maybe filling a different need or like filling something else, because then it's okay, I can do my part and then you can do your part. And it's like an assembly line. Yeah. It's too much to try to take it all by yourself. I don't want
There's
to.
There's no way. Yeah. It's a constant. I don't have a day, even just with what we do as well, where I am not having to scramble for time. And we're working to build what we're building. But yeah, there's just no way that we could take it all on ourselves. And I'm so grateful every time I see another nonprofit pop up who wants to do this work, because I'm like, I'm tired. I'm excited. I'm motivated. But there's a level of like, all right, I got to seek the Lord for some strength, because it can be taxing.
Yeah.
But so let's get all of them. Let's get all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
And that's why I'm always like, whenever there's someone that reaches out and they're like, hey, can I have some advice? Like, how do I start this, or how do I do better? I'm like all in, because I want to spread the resources. I want there to be so much more. So I'm very grateful that you have that mindset. And I think that's something that's going to just, continue to happen. And I'm just so grateful for Life Options Network and everything that you guys have helped to Let Them Live with, and all the moms that you guys have helped. And I really want people to go and support you guys. So like, how can anyone watching or listening find you guys, connect with you, support you, donate, material needs? Like, just give me all the good stuff.
Yes. All of it. So there's several ways. You can go onto our Get Involved page on our lifeoptionsnetwork.org, and there's a volunteer form there. If you're a pastor, there's a pastor's form that you can fill out, and so we can directly connect with you if you're interested there. And then of course there's the donation page, lifeoptionsnetwork.org/donate. We are doing a 10 for 10 campaign for 10,000 for 10 campaigns. 10,000 people giving $10 a month is our goal, and we're slowly reaching that, but we need people to give monthly because that allows us to continue to grow this work and get it into churches. And one commitment I have is we are going to be getting this into churches. So that is going to help us just have the training people, the facilitation of the racks and things. We need bins and stuff for the products. So there's just so many things that go into doing some of this work. And so yeah, those would be the few ways that people can help for sure.
Yay. Okay. Yeah. So sign up for $10 a month. I'm going to do that. Anyone listening, please go and do that. They definitely need your support. And then I can't remember if you mentioned it, but are you guys on social media? So give me all your social media. I know you're on social media. But give me all your social media.
So it's Life Options Network NW for Northwest. So that's on there, although we do serve in other states as well. So Life Options Network NW is our Instagram, and then you can find us on Facebook. And we're dividing by region on the different social media. So you can find right now primarily the Washington, but so that would be where you can go and keep up. And each store as well is going to have their own social media. So it gives the church an opportunity to grow that way.
Yay, love it. We're also going to tag you guys as this this podcast airs, so everyone will know where to go, where to donate, where to follow and support. Thank you again, Jenny, so much for being on. I'm just so grateful. And it's just amazing, like I said, to just have such a great friend in this movement who, like we talked about the other day, you can call up and you can be like, okay.
Yep, absolutely. No, it's a blessing, and it's just an honor to have you guys as friends and supporters of what we do, and we just love you guys and what you do. And so thank you for being an inspiration to us in this work, because that's absolutely part of it. So thank you.
Always,
so much.
We're in it together. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time on the next Let Them Live podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I would like to give a special shout out to Patrick at Moon Shadow Studios, who does an amazing job of editing our podcast. If you're ever in the need for a podcast editor, he is definitely the one to go to. Let Them Live is a Christian nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who are considering abortion primarily due to financial burden. 73% of women have abortions because of financial struggles, and we're here to help bridge that gap. Our goal is to provide the emotional and financial support these women need to feel empowered to choose life. If our cause resonates with you and you're interested in learning more, getting involved, or making a donation, please visit our website at www.letthemlive.org. One amazing way to contribute is by joining our Heartbeat Club, where you can become a monthly donor, and your ongoing support will ensure that we can continue helping women every single month. You can also follow us on social media to stay up to date with all the amazing stories and ways that you can be part of our mission. You can also find me on Instagram at Emily Burning. Thank you again for listening, and please join us for more upcoming inspiring stories and conversations.